Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Eric Philbrook, Creative Director for ASCAP, the leader in performing rights, advocacy, and service for songwriters. We are 1 million strong, and we have 4 of our strongest songwriters here. We're so thrilled to gather these 4 individuals together because they all have interesting stories, and they have so much to share with you guys. So without further ado, we'll get into this. I do want to do a little public service announcement. This panel is presented by ASCAP Citizen, which is ASCAP's voter registration and awareness campaign in partnership with Headcount. It's important for everyone to vote, but it's especially important for music creators to vote because 3/4 of a songwriter's income is regulated by the government, and strong copyright is vital to protect our music. So there's the PSA, and without further ado, let's meet our songwriters. So, to my direct left, Ron Artis II, hailing from the North Shore of Hawaii, as he said I should pronounce it. Ron Artis II is an award-winning artist, songwriter, and a mind-blowing guitarist who brings a soulful, honest, and uplifting musical style to the stage, energizing audiences all across the country and all over the world. He's a past recipient of the Songwriters Hall of Fame Bill Withers Award for music that reflects the eloquence of songwriting together with the spirit and soul that defines the music of Bill Withers. Truly an experience to witness live, Ron leaves listeners feeling loved, electrified, and transformed, hailed by the Rolling Stones, Seal, and Gary Clark Jr. Artis has recently shared the stage with everyone from Joan Baez to the Zac Brown Band. His new album, We Are Not Machines, just came out last month and captures the breadth of his brilliance. Please welcome Ron Artis II.
Thank you guys so much.
Next to Ron, it is obvious listening to Sarah Shook and the Disarmers' clear-eyed, biting, and fearless songs that integrity is the most important thing to the Chapel Hill, North Carolina country punk outfit. Says bandleader River Shook, a lot of artists are in this industry for fame, recognition, and money, but those things don't mean anything to me. Songwriting is it for me. Woo! Says River, it's the only healthy coping mechanism I've ever had. It's life-saving. I don't care about any superficial things when I'm making a record. On their resonant 4th album, Revelations, produced by River and released earlier this year via 30 Tigers, these raw and resilient tracks explode with passion and purpose. Throughout, Shook's deft storytelling documents regular people getting by and keeping on, all presented without filter or pretension. Her incredible story was also featured in a New York Times earlier this year. Please welcome River Shook. Singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, producer, and Grammy nominee Aaron Lee Tasjan's new album, Stellar Evolution, is a record with songwriting beholden to nothing but his vast experience, courage, and creativity. It is a testament to the pure sense of wonder and discovery that had made him fall in love with music as a kid, devouring it all with no understanding or care for what was cool. Written during a dark time for the queer community in the South, when bathroom bans and drag bans were enacted in Tennessee, while rhetoric around LGBTQ people became uglier and uglier, Aaron knew this album needed to reflect the vibrant community that is home to him. He succeeded magnificently. The result are powerful songs that share personal moments of overcoming challenges and embracing change for the world. They are universal in appeal and inclusive in intention. Stellar Evolution celebrates love, claims space, and shines ever so bright. Please welcome Aaron Lee Tasjan. And last but not least, Aoife O'Donovan is a Grammy-winning songwriter, singer, and multi-instrumentalist whose music radiates a timeless charm and contemporary allure beyond genre. Deemed a vocalist of unerring instinct by the New York Times, Aoife has released 4 critically acclaimed solo albums, including this year's All My Friends, inspired by the letters and speeches of suffragist Carrie Chapman Catt, and explores whether women's lives have truly changed a century after gaining the right to vote. A very timely project. Nice timing. Aoife is a founding member and lead vocalist of the progressive folk band Crooked Still and 1/3 of the folk trio I'm With Her, alongside bandmates Sarah Watkins and Sarah Jaros. She is the featured vocalist on the Goat Rodeo Sessions, whose members include Yo-Yo Ma, performed with over a dozen symphonies, including the National Symphony Orchestra. She spent a decade as a regular contributor to the radio variety shows Live From Here and Prairie Home Companion. Aoife needs to leave us early today, so we're going to look the other way while she dashes from the stage later in the program. She has a flight to catch, so just if she gets up and walks away, don't take it personally. All right, so you are all storytellers. You all have incredible stories to tell. I just want to start by maybe sharing a little bit of your own roots, the environment where you grew up, your family, and the musical conditions that first ignited in your soul that made you want to pursue this as a life. So why don't we start with you, Ron?
Well, aloha everybody. How are you guys doing? Good. I grew up in Haleiwa, Hawaii. I was born in Burbank, California, but we moved out to Hawaii when I was 4 years old. And I grew up in a family of 11 kids. So a big family, lots of music, lots of art. Both of my parents were artists, and my father was my main inspiration and teacher until he passed away in 2010. And I didn't start touring till I was about 24, 25. That was my first time taking music out of the islands of Hawaii. And yeah, that's sort of my upbringing. I was in a family band, and lots of inspirations, lots of music, and it's what I really love. I hope I never see art as a career or a business. I know it's a really important part, but to me, music is this really beautiful language.
Nice, thank you. River, I know you started out in Western Mass, but ended up in North Carolina. Do you want to talk a little bit about your formative years as a person and as a budding music creator?
Yeah, I was born in Rochester, New York, and my dad was a self-employed painter, and he did like wallpapering and little remodeling jobs. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. I had 2 siblings, and she homeschooled all of us all the way through. And it was a very conservative, very religious environment. It was, I mean, if you think of like the more strict people, if you were ever like a church person, like we were the family that was like the absolute weirdos. We were the kids that weren't allowed to go to youth group, that kind of thing, yeah. So I taught myself piano when I was 9, and I taught myself guitar when I was 16. And songwriting was kind of a means of escape into my own little world. I knew I was bi when I was like 9. Coincidentally, I started writing songs around that time. But yeah, so songwriting was a place for me to be safe, and I absolutely never intended for it to be something that would lead me to a place like here. It was always just deeply personal. And I moved to North Carolina with my family when I was 19, and I had a very fast escape marriage, and got pregnant, and then a very fast divorce. And I was working multiple jobs and had people who had heard my music, you know, encouraging me to find outlets for it. And it wasn't until, same as you, Ron, it wasn't until my mid-20s that I started touring and making records. And it was really hard at first. Like the first record that we made, I think I was drunk the entire time. It was just like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to be here, I don't want to put these songs out into the world for other people to like talk about and observe. It has really been, in the early days, it was very much a kicking and screaming being brought into this. And I gratefully turned a corner. And I'm very grateful for what I do. My band tours 150 days a year, and we typically hit Europe like once a year. But yeah, songwriting for me, even though business is a necessary evil, the business side of things, the songwriting is really, that's everything.
Wow. All right. Aaron, what do you want to share about your life in Ohio before you moved to the big city?
Well, I was born at an early age. I mean, a lot of people, sort of I identify me as somebody from Ohio. My actually was born in Wilmington, Delaware, 30 minutes south of Philadelphia. When I was 11 years old, my family moved to Orange County, California. And when I was 14 years old, my family moved to Ohio. So I kind of had the experience of always being the new kid in school.
Right.
And never having too many friends. I think in a lot of ways, songwriting became a way to fulfill the need that I had for connection with others, because it was something that I was always kind of searching for since I was a little kid. The experience of becoming a traveling songwriter for a living was something that happened purely by accident, kind of like River and Ron were saying. It wasn't an intention to do it for a career. I was having a healthy career as a side musician, guitar player, playing with artists like Mark Cohn and the New York Dolls, and my first band, Semi-Precious Weapons, in which I was the guitar player and principal co-songwriter with Justin Tranter. We had a pretty amazing ride.
Yeah.
I got to experience a lot of different sides of it, but at a certain point, as a touring musician living in New York, I figured out that I seemed to be spending a lot of money to live in an apartment that I was never in, and I had done a tour playing guitar for another artist where we had opened for Todd Snyder, and it was really Todd who influenced me and convinced me to move here to Nashville, where I've been living for the last 10 years. And when I got to Nashville, I was trying to find work still as a guitar player, but I realized really didn't have much of anything to show people down here what I could do as a player that would have fallen into the sort of more roots Americana country idioms that were sort of more prevalent down here than where I was living in New York. So I made a record. I made an entire album to show people what I could do as a guitar player. I was playing a show at the 5 Spot in East Nashville with my friend John Moreland. We were doing a song swap back and forth, and I had written a song for the record about the great gentrification of East Nashville called East Nashville Song About a Train. And God bless her, Ann Powers was at the show and started tweeting about my song. Also at that time, John Moreland was an up-and-coming unsigned artist, and pretty much every record label in town had come to that show to see John play. And thanks to his graciousness for allowing me to sit on stage next to him and share my own music, and folks like Ann very graciously spreading the word about what I was doing, I suddenly found myself with offers to have the record released on a label, and I really didn't know what I was doing at all. I just knew that this, at the centerpiece even of being the guitar player that I was really wanting to play and work on great songs, and felt very called to do that. Through that experience, I was given the gift of being able to do what I do now, which has changed my life in so many ways. But in the most in all kinds of good ways and bad ways. But for me, the most beautiful thing about it is that I really feel like as a kid, who was always the new guy in town, music gave me a refuge, you know, and as a songwriter and artist, I feel like I've been given the opportunity to give a little bit back to music, what music has given me, and that's a very gracious situation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Aoife, you representing the great Northeast of our country. Tell us a little bit about how you learned your craft and became the songwriter that you are today.
Well, it's true. I grew up in the Northeast, but like River, I now live in the South. I live in Florida, which has been a funny place to find myself after so many years living in New England and in New York. I grew up in a very musical family outside of Boston, oldest of 4 kids, and both of my parents were musicians. My dad had a radio show on WGBH, and he and my mom actually met playing music together in the early 80s in Boston. So a very folky childhood of music parties and, you know, folk musicians coming through town and staying at my parents' house, people staying up all night jamming, and I really wanted to have that life. I think it was kind of it could have gone the other way. I could have rebelled against my parents, you know, singing Joni Mitchell songs and Neil Young songs around the piano and been like, oh God, this is so embarrassing. But I was like, no, I want to do that too. And I did. I was very encouraged and ended up going to music school in Boston and studying contemporary improvisation, part of the jazz department at a conservatory. And then started my band Crooked Still, which was mostly traditional folk music, interpreting old songs, and was writing my own stuff the whole time, but not really up on stage doing my own music. So yeah, it wasn't until I was in my late 20s, right before I turned 30 actually, that I released my first solo album of original music. And it's kind of just jumped off from there. I've done a lot of collaborating and a lot of writing and performing with other people. But I think as a songwriter, I kind of come from, I still am hesitant to even, I think of myself more as a singer than a songwriter. Right. I'm sort of like, am I a songwriter? Even though I do write a lot of songs and release them, but it still feels like, can I do this?
So who were some of the artists, or what was some of the music that really just grabbed a hold of you and you said, I want to do this, you know, I want to be that, I want to feel the way this music makes me feel when I play it. What did you gravitate towards?
I think growing up in a culture where everybody was singing and everybody was playing music all the time, I spent a lot of time in Ireland as a child with my extended family, where there's this insanely beautiful tradition of singing, of sing-songs. These things, my family, it's a huge family. There would be like 30 of us, and every family gathering has a sing-song, and everybody has their song that they do at the sing-song. And you know, every time you're in a pub, you might do your party piece, or you break into song. And I remember in the early 90s, my dad made a little cassette tape that my cousins and I would listen to in the car, and there was one side was Nancy Griffith's Other Voices, Other Rooms, which I think came out in 1994, maybe around then. And then the other side was this compilation called 60s Dance Party that had, and the cassette, I can still see it in my dad's handwriting. It was called Griffith and Groovin', was the name of the cassette. And the 60s Dance Party side had, you know, like, my little runaway, my run, 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 and it had Leader of the Pack on it. And all this to say, there was this epic night in 1994 where the Inchydoney Hotel was having karaoke. I was like, I think 11 years old. And I sang Leader of the Pack at karaoke, and guys, it was really good. And I think that was the point where I was like, you know what, I got this, I am a star.
That's great. So Aaron, I've known you for a while, I've been listening to music, you've gone through many evolutions, to coin a phrase from your new album. But yes, you are an incredible guitar player. You are a really great songwriter. I hear so many little nods to different artists that I love in your music. Was there a handful or one or two artists when you were learning your craft that they were the blueprint for you, that you were like, if I follow this, I'm going to do what I want to do?
Absolutely. Somebody did me a huge favor when I was a kid. I had starting to write my own songs. I think I was 14 or 15 years old, and for some reason, I think I was just sort of a goofy kid. I loved comedians and funny kind of songs and stuff like that. And so a lot of my early stuff was, there was a real sense of humor to it. And there was this older guy who I was a guitar player in town that I really admired, and he would kind of come over to the house, and he wasn't like a guitar teacher, but I did learn a lot from him, and we would play things together, and I worked up the nerve to show him a couple of songs that I'd written that he was chuckling at, a few of the lines and kind of enjoying it. And the next time he came over, he brought a CD with him, and he said, I really enjoyed your songs, and they kind of reminded me a little bit of this, and this kind of sounds like what you're trying to do. You might want to check this out. And it was a collection of John Prine songs called Prime Prine. And I played that CD into the ground, and then I, my favorite after-school activity at that time, the Easton Town Center Mall in Columbus, Ohio, had a Virgin Megastore that was right across the street from a Barnes & Noble, and that was like my haven. I would go there every day after school and read books and listen to music on the listening booths and just check out, whatever looked interesting. The days where you would buy the record because of what the cover looked like. I was one of those people. I just loved music so much. But when I actually took the time to get all of John Prine's studio albums that he had recorded, I was completely blown away by how different they all were and how many styles he was able to pull off as a songwriter and performer. And I believed every single note of everything that he was doing, no matter if it was a disco song, like Saddled in the Rain, or, if it was a beautiful folk ballad like Mexican Home. And the idea that you could write songs with an originality to them that would allow you to go to all these different places, influence-wise, musically. I felt like I'd found a part of myself, because I never felt like I'm a punk rocker or I'm a country singer or I'm a this or a that. I just loved music, and I think John Prine loved music in a way that allowed us to love him as much as we did and as much as we do, and that was very influential for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have to run out.
Aoife,
I could stay here all day.
we bid you adieu. Thank
chat with
you
you guys.
so much.
Thank you guys
for being here.
I can't wait to hang out again with all of you, and it'll happen. See you guys next time. How do I?
Thank you, Aoife.
Bye-bye. River, you said that music for you was a form of escape, a path to something else. Was there a blueprint? Were there artists that you looked to that gave you strength and sort of an example of what a life in music could do for you?
So back to the conservative Christian parent thing. I wasn't allowed to listen to music unless it was classical or worship music. So even contemporary Christian stuff was like too racy for my parents.
Oh, jeez.
So literally praise and worship music and classical music, and that was it. So I think that when I started writing songs around 9 years old, part of that was trying to find or create something new, because if I had to listen to Vivaldi one more time, I love Vivaldi, my favorite, but my parents had like the classic like cassette tape, like all the great composers on cassette, and I mean that's all we had to listen to. No radio, no TV in our house. And when I was 17, I graduated from homeschooling and got my first job as a cashier. And all of my coworkers were my age. They were all high school students. They all knew each other. They all had their cliques and their thing going on. So I was this like, I had short, spiky hair and fake glasses and braces, and I was like the homeschool kid. And when these people found out that I did not know who like the Gorillaz were, or like I did not know anything about music, they just started feeding me this diet of burned CDs to like sneak into my house. And I had a little CD player in my room, and I would wait until the light in my parents' room went off, and then I would lay under my covers and listen to, I was really at their, their mercy. But the first thing I ever heard that was not Christian music or classical music was Belle and Sebastian's Tiger Milk. And I was completely blown away by that. There was some Decemberists, I think their first EP, and then the thing that really hooked me was Elliott Smith. And when I heard his voice coupled with his songwriting, I felt like it gave me permission to be as honest as one can be in my songwriting. I was completely just floored by his vulnerability, where it's coming from this place of strength. Like, he doesn't care what people think about what he has to say. He's just communicating to the world. So that was the one that really got me. And I went to my friend who got me that one. I was like, give me everything you have. Like, I have to hear like everything this person has ever done. Elliott Smith is he was a friend when I had no friends. He was a companion. And then after that, I got my first car and started being able to, go out and spend some money I was making. And the first CD I ever bought, completely going in blind, was Interpol's Antics, which remains one of my favorite records to this day. But so my intro to secular music was indie rock. It was crazy, weird, Modest Mouse type stuff. And it wasn't until my early 20s that I heard country music. And my introduction to country music was old school, Johnny Cash, Hank Williams, Wanda Jackson, Charlie Pride. And that felt like home too. So at this point, I've never played with a band. It's just me writing songs. And looking back, over what I had collected, it was like, okay, well, some of these sound like this. Like, this feels like a homecoming of sorts. But I also never wanted to be pinned down to one genre either, and have really worked hard to not get pigeonholed as a country artist. I love country music, but I love indie rock. I love all kinds of music. And so I started a side project and put a record out under the name Mightmare, and that's kind of my way of exercising all of my indie rock tendencies. But yeah, it was really a mixed bag of I'm sure there are still artists now that most people know of who were massive that just completely sheltered, just missed them.
Right. Do you still kind of discover an artist from the 80s and you were like, oh my God, this
Absolutely. which is nice.
Yeah. So Ron, you come from a musical family. Your father was a musician. Was there a certain artist or a certain style of music that your family would play together, or was it just kind of all over the map in terms of what you guys...
As a family band, it was all over the map, and we would play every genre you can think of. It was interesting, my dad had this weird rule. You couldn't say that you hated a style of music unless you learned it first, because then you were qualified to explain what you hated about it.
Right.
So it was weird because when I was really young, again, I'm from a really big family, and our bedrooms, we shared bedrooms for the longest time, and one point my sister got her own room and it was right next to mine. And sorry, Stefani, if you look at this, but she was crazy because it would go from Tchaikovsky ballet music to heavy metal. like from track to track. And I was right next door to that. I'm just like, what is wrong with my sister? Like, it was crazy. But then, and I hated rock and roll music just because growing up, because I felt it didn't have a melody and it wasn't like saying anything to me.
Right.
And then I don't know, this weird thing happens when you turn 13. Then I started liking rock music. But like, it was interesting because like growing up, like I would find like Paca de la Chia, Yo-Yo Ma, it would George Benson, just all these artists who like you could tell that they found the one thing that they needed to be doing in their life. Then it was sort of through my teenage years, I would start listening to a lot of Stevie Wonder, Jimi Hendrix, B.B. King. But what ended up really sticking out to me, because I play a lot of guitar, I didn't start singing until I was 22. Before that, it was all things piano, synths, drums, guitar, bass, all that stuff. And what I later realized was the artists that I was drawn to, similar like what you said, were people who were just really honest and vulnerable in their expression. And there's an artist not many people in the States know named Charles Aznavour. He's from Quebec. And he does this song called La Boheme. And I remember seeing it on YouTube once, and there were no subtitles. I didn't understand a word, but I realized that at the end of listening to that, I was in tears. And I was like, man, what is that? Like, why, how can this artist be so honest in their expression and so like you feel everything they're expressing so heavily? I was like, that's what I want to feel and be close to. I don't want to have a presentation on stage. I don't want to be like, hey, look at me, look what I could do. I want to curate and create a space to where I'm aware that when someone comes to a venue, they've spent time to get childcare, get parking, saved up from work, they bought a ticket, they've gone all the way out there, they bought a drink or bought something to eat. In this moment, they want to be refueled or feel something or come in and have a real honest experience. I was like, so why should I get on stage and talk about my shoes or my car or my, like, that stuff's, yeah, I get it, it can be fun, but there comes a point in your life where you realize, like, man, we're all on this piece of rock spinning in space trying to figure out this life together. Like, what experiences have I had that might be of use to you? What experiences have I observed that might be of use to you? And how can we help each other before we all move on?
Right.
And that's a major influence in a lot of my music, is just trying to get to a space to where, what are we here to share? What are we here to talk about? And like anyone, I'm not immune to, what is that called? Like imposter syndrome? I don't know if you guys ever hit that wall, but it's just like, all of a sudden you walk into a space and you're just like, why am I in here? I call it seasons. I don't know if you guys go through that, but there's a season where I just feel like, writing all day. I can't stop. Then there's a season where I feel like just performing. I'm not really in a creative space. Then there's a season where I feel like everything I've done is crap. I just need to throw it out. It's garbage. And then there's a season where it's just kind of just blank. I won't do anything with music. I'll do something else.
Right.
And then there was one day when I realized that it was sort of a cycle. And the worst thing I could do was disagree with where I was when I was in that space.
Right.
If I accept, like, oh, wait a minute, I'm in a space where the soil needs to rest. Wait, I'm in a space where everything feels like it needs a harvest. So when those moments come, I just accept it and try to be honest in that space. And much to my surprise, everyone else on this planet is human too, and they all go through these different things. But we're mostly in denial about it. So I guess, long story short, all those things really inspire and kind of direct my songwriting in a way. I used to really talk about genres, but nah. I more describe it as feelings. Like, what do you want to say and how do you want to say it? Back to that notion, like, that music is a language, I guess.
Cool. Let's talk about your new music. I think each of you has released a new collection of songs this year that I think, in their own way, are deeply personal to each of you. And I also think, in terms of your journey as an artist, your new work is a high watermark for each of you. So, River, why don't you maybe tell a little bit about what your new album, Revelations, means to you, You produced it. It's clearly, a beautiful collection of songs, and it means something to you. So you want to share kind of what went into it and what it represents at this point?
When I started writing the songs for Revelations, I was already in the midst of a bit of an upheaval with my creative process. Because we tour so often, my rule of like, I only write when I'm alone and there's no one in the house and no one can hear me and I'm like, miles from any person breathing. I just had to adapt to writing songs on the road. And I think that played a really big role in the expansiveness of the subject matter on that record. I feel like being out in the world and not in my comfortable place kind of set the bar a little bit higher and widened the scope to a degree. So I had 3 or 4 of the songs written and selected that I knew were going to be on that record, and I knew that if I was going to do the songs justice on the album, that I was going to have to produce it myself. There was something really special and really, really personal, like very deeply personal about the songs. So I talked to our team and got everybody on board, but there's one of the songs on that record, Nightingale, is the song that I finally allowed myself to write about accepting music as a career and accepting like who I am as a person that is meant to write songs and meant to release songs into the world for other people to find and relate to. I think that's one of the most rewarding things about being a songwriter is people telling you, I thought I was the only person that felt this way, or that lived through this, or that got past that. But Revelations was a really huge leap for me. And as I'm sure as y'all know, it's like anytime you put out a record, you look at your previous work and you want to see that arc of growth. You want to see the trajectory. And when you get to a place where you can look at everything you've done back to back and not discredit the early works, they have their place. They play a really important role. They're part of your songwriting story and journey as well. And I feel like with Revelations, there was that feeling of like, okay, we've grown like onto the next thing. Start writing songs for the next record.
Nice, very cool. Aaron, you've, as Ron said, he doesn't like to talk about genre. I think you embody the notion that any genre is open to interpretation, and you've certainly had a lot of fun making your music. Your new album, Stellar Evolution, is case in point. It's hard to describe, and that's a major compliment because it really is a little bit of everything that you love and that you want to say. So tell us a little bit about what this record means to you and what you were trying to accomplish with it.
I think if there was a goal that coincided with the making of this record, it was really just to continue. I had a really challenging last several years in this business, They came, as challenges do, with sort of a roller coaster of sort of ups and downs. But it got to a point where I almost began to wonder, if what I had believed that this was something I was meant to do and this was the way that I was meant to spend my life was true or not. I think of things like I was very fortunate in 2021 to receive my first Grammy nomination for a song that I wrote with my friend Yola for her record called Diamond Studded Shoes. And, you know, Yola and I saw a lot in each other. We became friends like immediately when we met on this crazy tour in Sweden back in 2018. And, you know, we were both kind of, you know, working class kids who, you know, didn't come from families with affluent backgrounds or, you know, connections of any sort. We were the first people in our families to do music, and we saw a lot in each other. And so that moment was really magical for both of us, I think. I mean, she had been nominated previously, but I think she knew, you know, she called me, she was in England, and she called me up and the day that it happened, and for the first like 5 minutes of the phone conversation, we didn't even say anything to each other. We just laughed because it was one of those just very cathartic moments in life where, you know, you think, my goodness, you know, what a fortunate situation, and to get to do this with my dear friend, you know, felt really special. Had a meeting scheduled with my then record label for that afternoon, and I went to the meeting, and I sat down, and they said, we're interested in continuing to work with you on some level, but we would really have to renegotiate your deal to reflect how poorly you've done as an artist. And all of that in the same day, you know? And that's a lot of times, you know, what this business is like. I mean, last night we were celebrating my dear friend and hero, Mary Gaucher, 25th year anniversary of her landmark album, Drag Queens and Limousines, which was something that I found as a young person and saw myself in, you know, very important. And we were standing in the green room at the City Winery, all of these wonderful artists singing Mary's songs, and she and I were kind of just catching up. We hadn't seen each other in a while, and Emmylou Harris was sitting at the table and started practicing her song of Mary's, and I apologize if I get emotional. We kind of stopped talking for a minute, and I could see tears were welling up in Mary's eyes, you know, and it was happening to me too, and I think that we both were sort of understanding that, you know, this wasn't an easy road that Mary had gone down. This was a lifetime's worth of work, and now she was bearing witness to one of her biggest heroes singing her songs, you know, and it was such a beautiful moment to get to share with her and to say as her friend, like, you've done this, you know, you've made real magic, you know, you've made the kind of thing where you're able to take, you know, these experiences and life that you've lived and translate it into, you know, real magic, something that affects people that they can see and have, but you can't hold it or touch it, you know. It's a very special thing when people are able to do that as a writer. And I think, you know, so many times, as we've all mentioned, you know, the business side is can be challenging, you know, and can be a tough situation. But, you know, the record that I made was really born out of a refusal to give up, you know, and to continue doing the important part of what I was doing, which was, you know, creating the work and you know, making little touchstones about my inner life, you know, the things you don't say out loud, for other people to find, see themselves in, and be inspired by. You know, I think anytime I make a record, if there's a goal or a hope for it, it's that some 14-year-old kid somewhere will hear it and be inspired by it and write something that blows everything I've ever done out of the water. you know, and that music will continue on, and that all of this will keep going, and that, you know, people will find value in expressing themselves and sharing themselves with others in a vulnerable and open way. I think it encourages a lot of good qualities in people to remain curious and open and empathetic towards humanity, and believe that there's goodness in the world. Because if there's one thing that I've learned from music, it's that there's some really, really good, beautiful things in the world, and sometimes you have to get out of your own way to see it, but that's all part of the human experience and part of the value of being an artist and a listener.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. Hear, hear. Ron, further to what Aaron was saying is, yeah, life as a music creator is hard. It's you have your ups and downs. It's very difficult. When I first discovered you and your music, it was at a jazz festival in Cape May, New Jersey, and your wife and you had 2 kids at that point?
Yeah.
Anyway, I was amazed that you traveled with your family, and I could just only imagine it's hard to travel as an artist, and yet, you know, I've been following you for a few years now. I see you are eternally optimistic. You're driven by faith, and you're driven by family, and you just, you know, you're spreading that message. And your new album, "We Are Not Machines," I feel is such a combination of all the things that you've been saying in your music and in your life in general. But explain a little bit about why you think this is perhaps your best work that you've created.
I find it really important because we talked a little bit about this backstage. This album, "We're Not Machines," kind of nods toward what I said earlier about the fact that we all go through different seasons in our life. And if we're really honest with ourselves, we can look outside and see that we give every living thing on this planet permission to have seasons except for ourselves. We think that we're supposed to have this consistent level of productivity. And if we dip under it, we think something's wrong with us, or we think we need to self-medicate, and we think we need to make all these changes, when sometimes we just need to sit down and take a deep breath. Each track on this album has a really heavy message or experience behind it. I'll pick, for instance, the song called "Little Gray Skies." My wife and I, we've been married 12 years. We have 5 kids. And before our first daughter was born, we lost to pregnancy. And I don't know, anybody that can relate to that knows that it's one of the most confusing pains in form of loss. It's really confusing. And it nearly broke our marriage, amongst other things. It was a really dark year. And I kind of did what I guess most people do, or, you know, I kind of pushed it down emotionally to try to get myself together and keep going. And about a year ago, my brother and his wife and another dear friend of mine and his wife went through the same situation at different stages of the pregnancy. And my brother and his wife, their marriage didn't survive it. And then my friend, his wife emotionally didn't survive it. She unfortunately ended her life. And everything that I tried to push down or step beyond just came back and literally just crushed me, man. You know, you see it that close and with people that you've known so well. And one day I was sitting down, I was trying to put it in words and express it in a conversation with my wife, and somehow one of us said, like, it's like there's so many moments in your life that are these really tragic little gray skies, or these moments, and it sort of started from there to sit down and write. And I think one of the most intimidating things to do is to write about something that's so personal, or that's not extreme, not a joyful situation, you know. It's and one of the lyrics in that song is I stare at the dark skies or trying to find their little light. And that was something that, I grew up in Hawaii, big family. It's summer all year round. It might get more rainy or more whatever, but it's always like, everything's always bright and optimistic and amazing. And kind of going through something like that, I just couldn't make sense of it. I'd already gone through a portion of my life where I lost my grandmother, then the very next year I lost my dad. The very next year I met my now wife, and then it was like a year and a half later this happens, and it was like, whoa, man, so much life happened in such a short amount of time. And there's a lot of songs on this album that are just about being honest with yourself, stopping. And I don't know about you guys, but I was one of those people who just like, when I turned 16 or something, I said to my mom, I said, you know what, emotions get in the way. They're just confusing things that just like get in the way and mess up your life. So I decided I wasn't gonna cry ever again. And my mom was just like, okay. And wow. One of my sisters, she doesn't let me even forget this. I told her, I said, when I'm grown, I'm just gonna have concrete all around my house. I don't want to deal with grass and all this stuff and all these bugs. And now I'm the one that's, married 12 years, has 5 kids, and is always talking about live one day at a time and try to figure out who you are inside. And it's just, it goes to say that like, we can try and think about a plan for life or all these things, but in the end, man, you've got to be honest and figure out who you are, figure out what this journey is all about. And this is actually the first body of work where my wife has credits on the album. And the last track on the album is called Gift of Time, because you mentioned before, it's, living isn't always easy as an artist. And I mentioned we have all our kids and we tour and travel together, but my wife said one day, she started writing this poem down, and she said, what do we save up for when we'll never get more time? And that began to become the song. And it's just about like all these things we save up for, all these things we chase, all these things we place importance on, when the people you need to really value are right next to you or right around you. Like, we're always in a rush. We want to call our best friends back, but I got this thing I'm going after. It's like, man, then one day, like, I've lost like 6 really close friends, 6 or 7 really close friends this last year, man. And it's out of habit. I still dial their numbers or something, and it's just like, then it all comes back, It's like, got to value where you're at and who's around you. And regardless if they agree with your life or not, man, it's like, you're going to mess the hell out of them when they're gone. So call them up, have that barbecue, have that moment, laugh about their team doing really bad. Life.
Very, very beautiful. Music is a collaborative art. It's a gift that brings people together. Here we are at a music festival, Americana Fest. There's tons of kindred spirits rubbing shoulders and elbows in music venues all across town. Belonging, having that feeling of belonging, whether it's in a band, your fellow musicians, or it's something you generate amongst your fans. Just feeling you're part of something. That is a gift that just keeps on growing and expanding. What does belonging mean to you? Like, what has to be there for you to feel like, yes, this is how I want to feel. This is why I do what I do, because I belong to a community. I belong to a group of people that all believe in the same thing. Do you want to just speak to that? We've got a few minutes left here. Just what does belonging mean to you in this crazy music thing that you do?
Oh, gosh. That's such an interesting question, because I've never really felt like I belonged anywhere, honestly. I suppose in some ways it's finding other people who feel that way, and it's not really born of a sense of individualism. It's just sort of maybe recognizing sometimes that your true strength comes from inside, and you learn to recognize that in other artists that you can become friends with or admire or engage with in all sorts of different ways. So, I think I think there was a time, when I was younger where I really did have a desire within me to belong somewhere, but I've really made peace with and found a really beautiful existence in feeling safe within myself, and knowing that there are other people out there who feel the same way, and that even though there's not necessarily like a true sense of belonging within that, there are these kindred spirits who are little lights at the ends of all of my tunnels that I get to look forward to every time I see them or hear one of their songs. So.
Right. Cool, thank you. River, you're on the road 150 days a year, is that right? There must be something that wherever you go, you must experience that feeling that people that come out to see you have a connection with you, and you have a connection with them, and it doesn't matter where you are, that's something that exists wherever you are. How important is it for you to know that that's what you're doing? Like, you're creating this moment, these experiences, these people are connecting with you in a way.
Very much what Aaron was saying. As a person who's never really belonged anywhere, or for myself, I've never really had a desire to belong anywhere. The thing that drives me is getting to know myself better and to evolve and become a better person. And I think what makes shows so special and interacting with fans, when it is that really special moment of connection, I think for me the reward is giving that sense of belonging to our fans, because they feel like they're part of something, because of what myself and my bandmates have made for them.
Cool, well, nice, beautifully said. Ron, you play all over the world, and you bring something, you bring a light, you bring a spirit to everything that you do, and like Aaron and River said, you're giving this to people. Does that make you feel like you're fulfilling your mission on this earth by bringing that to the masses?
Thanks, man. I was like, whoa, I did all that. That's pretty cool. No, thanks. I find it really important to like ask myself that question a lot. Like, every time I go on a stage, I'm incredibly nervous. I get like, somebody just laughed in my face the other day when I said that. I was just like, man, I'm nervous every single time, and I honestly hope I never lose that, because it just kind of reminds me that I care. But like, as far as belonging, it's funny, on this trip home in Nashville right now, it's like I can count maybe 25 times in my life I've ever been completely by myself. Like, I grew up in a huge family, and then I tour a lot with my family, and I've always got my bandmates around or somebody around. And so I got home yesterday, I flew in, and I got to the house, and it was like, there's no noise. It just felt so weird. And I realized, it's like, I was like, man, like, that's weird. Okay, I can do whatever I want. I can play the songs I want to hear, whatever. And it's like, Then I switched it off and I was eating by myself, and I was like, that's so weird. So I guess I feel really comfortable or recharging kind of around when I know like my family's comfortable, my kids are doing something, and I have one of those minds that just doesn't stop. And so it's always going, but I find comfort through other people a lot. Like I know if we got to go, I know you guys on the road a lot, so sometimes you get to stay at like a really fancy hotel, and it's like, oh, nice, all right, this is pretty cool. And then sometimes, you get to bring a friend or a family member along who's never got to do that before. And then you get to see it through their eyes. It just feels so much more cool. Like to me, I find a lot of comfort in that, kind of just seeing like, oh, cool, I got to be a part of something that provided some peace to someone. And I think that's sort of, like you mentioned purpose on this planet, for me is my idea of success in this whole music thing is if something I got to be a part of creating inspired someone to make a positive change in any avenue of their life, just one person, then to me that's a success. Because we have this archaic idea that if we like become extremely famous or get a ton of money, that's it. And that's peace and happiness and freedom on this planet. But if that was true, then why have I met like depressed billionaires that feel completely lonely?
Right.
And they're just like, I would seriously like wish I could go back 20 years and make a different decision. I'm like, you serious, dude? You got it. Like, you got it all. You got like, and they're just like, yeah, but no one knows me. Everyone that knows me is around because they want something. Like, no one knows me or cares about me. And I just found that to be one of the saddest things. And there's a song on the album called Beautiful, and one of the lyrics in there came from a realization. I grew up in a loving family and a loving community, Hawaii. Everybody just says hello to you when they just pass you on the street. They're just like, yo, what's up, aloha, how's your day going? And you get a smile. And I went to, sorry, everybody who's been in the East Coast, but I went to New York City, and I felt like the elf, Will Ferrell. I was just like, hey, aloha, hey, how you doing? And he's like, bro, what's going on, dude? And I had a talk with a friend who had the opposite childhood of me, just really abusive, really bad situations. And we were talking one day, and I was just like, man, I need to work really hard to see life from a perspective that's not my own. I can go around and wonder, like, why would you treat a person that way? Like, don't you care about them? Like, it's so easy to take a hard stance on what your perspective and your experiences were and project that to why doesn't this person get it? But then the realization of one day, like a friend told me, he's like, do you know how many humans, like how many adults on this planet never heard the words, I love you, from a selfless place, or felt like an honest embrace? Never heard an I love you without somebody being like, hey, you look good, what's your number, or something like that attached to it, or just an honest I love you. And that really inspired this song Beautiful, because there's a lyric in there that says, how are you supposed to trust in a love you've never known? And it's like trying to understand and bring thought and conversation around, like, there are a lot of people operating and living from a very hurt place. And to project on them and get angry on them for not understanding, like, a place we came from or grew up from, or understanding we have, it just continues the cycle. Instead of sitting down and saying, like, tell me your story. Like, I want to know about your life. Maybe I have something that could be of use to you, and maybe you have something that could be used to me, but this whole idea of building cultural bridges and society bridges to each other, it's a good idea, but it doesn't work if we don't see the value in the other cliff. If I don't see value in your story, and I don't see value in your life and your needs and wants, then I'm only building a bridge to make you more like me. And so I'm stepping, and again, like, I'm going over there to try to help you, but in turns, I'm just going to be stepping all over you. So I know it was a really long-winded answer, but kind of, in a way, I'm just still learning and trying to be of service to people I see around, and we're grateful for the opportunity I've been given.
Wonderful. Well, I think we're at time.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ron, River, Aaron. Thank you all for coming here today. Thanks, Americana Fest, for having us. Ron and River performing tonight at Basement East. Aaron is tomorrow at Estelle's, right? 1 p.m. And then a showcase Friday night at the Purple Building. Anyway, keep the music flowing. Thank you, everybody.